Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing well. And today, my friends, we're back with a showdown between Grand Cathay and the Ogre Kingdoms. It's going to be a land battle, and it is going to be a dragon-blooded lord facing off against Scrag and his dreaded Gorgers. So it should be quite a bit of fun. And I have to certainly say, I've been playing quite a few land battles here with Grand Cathay, and I think it's where they really belong. So the first thing you're going to be noticing is the harmony ability is actually useful here. So due to the fact that you can have these formations, I don't have to go play for objectives and spread out my army. You can have these really kind of uniform forces that can benefit from the harmony, which is going to be giving me leadership and melee defense, making these very cheap peasant spearmen have 35 melee defense, which is really, really good. And solid leadership at 74. That is really, really good. On top of that, we got peasant archers here in the secondary line, obviously to shoot at all the big light ogre targets. Now, ogres do have armor like Iron Guts and the Mournfang Cavalry, but they have a lot of light armor as well. Looking at Gorgers, they have 15 armor and die super quick to both peasant long spearmen as well as peasant archers. Also on top of that, if you look at the basic ogre bulls, they only have 40 armor. Scrag himself has 30. Hunter has 30. You guys are getting a bit of a recurring picture here of the ogre roster. So basic archer units are very cost effective here. Now, obviously, I kind of feel like the ogres will inevitably get through my front line of peasant spearmen, even though I have some chevrons and they do really benefit from the yin and yang. So in the secondary, I have more durable troops. We do have the Jade Warrior Halberds. These guys are quite good against ogres. Obviously good against the aforementioned targets I was talking about, but also exceptional against Iron Guts and some of the bigger boys. So for our Lord, we do have a basic dragon-blooded Lord here with the Lord of Yin. So the spells I brought are very simple. One of the spells is going to be summoning the Storm of Shadows, which basically lowers speed by 45%. Quite good. You know, if there's like an engagement you want to, catch out or slow someone down who's flanking you, it's a good spell for 4 Winds of Magic. And we do also have Ancestral Warriors, which is amazing. It summons like this ethereal halberd unit to block up your opponent. So much like in Skaven and Warhammer 2, like dropping a summon with Cathay and your opponent's advancing force is very strong because it allows more time for your cannons to shine. Now in the back, we got 2 spears, 1 spear and 1 Jade Warrior Halberd defending the Grand Cannons of Cathay. These things are super good. They hit like trucks and they have one of the coolest sound effects in the game. And with the lore, not lore of Yin, but with harmony, yin and yang, they get reload skill and just all sorts of neat stuff there. So I like that quite a bit. Now, obviously, really important to keep the ogres from getting into the back line. I am relying on peasants in the front, but I do also have some great Longma Riders who are excellent kind of peeling units. Not like a good offensive unit in my opinion, but like really mobile and can certainly get some good lancing charges with a nice charge bonus against light armor. So I like to use them as like a counterpuncher unit. We got a couple of peasant horsemen. Now for the Ogre Kingdom's army, it's going to be 2 Gorgers. Obviously good against pretty much everything. Front line is going to be Ogre Bulls with the Iron Fists. These guys do have shields, so against basic peasant archers, they do have some sort of mitigation. Noblars, Lead Belchers in the back line to shoot at my armor. We got Scrag pumping up the jams. He's got his big brewing pot and is going to be having a good time. A Wild Stonehorn, a little bit risky against cannons, but Pone is the man of the people. Oh, is that a hunter on a Stonehorn? Is that just a basic? Okay, yeah, it's just the basic variant. I didn't remember the guy riding on top. And some Mournfang Cavalry. Tons of armor piercing, right? So many of my units, like Jade Warriors, are armored, and so are my Jade Lancers, my Longma Riders. So having a degree of armor piercing against Cathay is certainly necessary. So the battle has begun. Grand cannons are singing across the map. Certainly shooting into the trees, but unfortunately, yeah, some of the shots are running into the trees here. So Pone actually does have a pretty good advance on me. He can get up close and really not take too much from the cannons until he is just right up in my face. So, classic Skaven tactic here, going to be using the Dragon-Blooded Lord of Yin to drop the Halberd in the front to try and stop these Ogre Bulls and other units from really saturating into my battle line. So here it comes. It's a nice little summon, looks really cool too, and you can see the ghostly Ancestor Warriors going to be piling out and should be able to blockade the Ogre advance, because Ogres are going to be very scary if they can advance at the same time and have a big alpha strike, so anything you can do to mitigate the forward pressure and buy more time for your missiles is going to be really sweet. Now, Ogres are moving in. Iron Fist shall be surging ahead of their allies, it looks like. No, actually pausing to wait to gather their forces. Now the Peasant Archer is going to be shooting in and getting big damage, and the cannon fires roaring into the back, tearing into the Hunter here. Look at the big damage. But soon we're going to be switching on to the Lead Belchers. They're the big threat. Now, some of the Ogres do get a little bit overzealous, but the brave peasants of Cathay are braced, and they kind of hold it. Didn't look so great, but, honestly, they didn't take that much damage. And the Ogres are the ones turning and running despite the Toothcracker. And here comes the great Longma Riders descending from the heavens and lancing down those Ogre Bulls. And man, look how badly they got wrecked. And on the other side, we get the Longma Riders as well, just screaming into these Ogres in the front. And that is going to be some brutal damage. Man, this is what this is. This is like, it feels so righteous playing Cathay in land battles for sure. They just like seem to be just such a a synergistic faction compared to how they are in domination mode. But nonetheless, the Ogre Bulls here get hammered pretty hard. The Ancestral Halberds really kind of screwing up the formation of the Ogres, and the 2 Cathay cannons in the back are going to be unleashing hell there into the Leadbelchers, and those guys are certainly getting pounded to dust pretty hard. Now, Peasant Archers still in good shape. Peasant Spears really holding super well. Like, honestly, none of the Ogres were really able to get into the front line well. Now, over here on the side, we do have Gorgers moving around, a very scary threat, so we do use the Storm of Shadows to slow their speed down. Look at these Peasant Spears, like, holding back the Gorgers and honestly not trading badly. And the Peasant Horsemen going to be sacrificed. Obviously, in a vacuum, they wouldn't do super well against these bad boys, but it's basically just buying time for my Peasant Archers to just really get some good value in there. Now, the Ogre army is starting to buckle in the front line. They still do have the Stonehorn, and the Leadbelchers did kind of get broken, but it looks like they have rallied back. The other shooting of the Ogres has been absolutely pounded by a combination of archers, but here comes the Mournfang Cavalry on the flank, trying to catch me unbraced here, but I do charge into the Halberds, trying to hold them at bay, while the Cannons and Longbow Riders use as a little bit of a roadblock there, but I realize I don't need to. They're kind of trapped up there, and those Cannons are just wrecking these Ogre Cavalry, while the Dragonblood Lord just kind of sits in reserves. I did have another summon, so I was kind of waiting there. My poor Peasant Archers here being hunted by the Stonehorn. Certainly going to be feasting. One of the cooler looking models in the game for sure is the Stonehorn rampages through these poor Cathay peasants. Certainly not what they signed up for, but you know, it is what it is. Now, on the other side, Peasant Long Spearmen really doing an excellent job, really kind of bringing me back to the Bretonnian playstyle. It's weird, like it's almost like a combination of like Bretonnia and Empire. You have these like big cannons in the back, but instead of, well, I guess it's pretty similar to like State Troopers really, but they really are reminiscent of the Bretonnian peasant spears and just kind of tar pitting with those men-at-arms to spears here. But yeah, Peasant Long Spears holding back the Gorgers. Scrag and the boys moving into the back line, able to break up my missiles pretty good here, and my front line is starting to buckle as Noblars push their way through. Gorgers getting hammered by all the cannons, but we'll be getting on top of the Peasant Archers, and I really have to make sure my cannons do stay online here. Longbow Riders trying to peel down the big Beast of Burden, but the Beast is causing a lot of problems here. Certainly melting my Grand Cannons. The Harmony of Yin is, I believe, active because we do have the Longbows nearby, so that's going to be giving them bonus leadership too, which helps you kind of stabilize that position. But the Longbows, again, a good roadblock unit. Not going to do super well against the 110 armor of the Stonehorn, but the Jade Warrior Halberds in the back should be lending some nice support to that fight. Now, Mournfang Cavalry still causing a lot of problems, just plowing through my archers. A little bit of overkill. You know, the archers are pretty cheap, but yeah, it's always like I did play a little bit of Three Kingdoms. When I see Cathay in like big battles like this, some of the units when I look at them, I'm like, wait, is this Three Kingdoms? Is this the same game here? But Grand Cannons just pouring into the Ogre Cavalry. You're going to be seeing some big old shots roaring down as that guy. Oh man, he just saw his life flash right before his eyes. Worst cannon crew of all time, missing all 3 shots against these huge targets, but it's okay. They've actually been doing some good work this game. Storm of Shadows active here on the Stonehorn to make sure it can't get away. Longbow Riders and Archers just kind of cleaning up whatever Ogres they can, and that Hunter does get absolutely hammered by the hordes of Cathay Spears and Halberds. And interestingly enough, Cathay actually has an okay matchup against Ogres in Domination mode, considering Ogres are kind of considered to be the faction of factions in that game mode. Here, the Mournfang Cavalry moving in. Probably going to be getting on the cannon. Cannonballs miss once again, but at the last second, the Ogres turn and run. So these peasants are, I'm sure, very grateful not to be, although they're not peasants, they look a little bit more fancy, but happy not to be thrown in the great cauldron of the Maw. GG, well played, Opone. It was a fun game, and really enjoying Cathay and land battles. I feel like that's how the faction was designed. I feel like they were not designed to play in domination mode as much. Like, other factions don't really feel that punishment, but considering the like yin and yang mechanic, it's really strong if like you can have these tight formations, like kind of dwarf-like formations, right? You're getting a ton of extra melee defense, leadership, reload skill on your Peasant Archers, on your cannons. It just really feels good. The Dragonblood Lord obviously didn't get any value, but the summons were super clutch, and so too were the slows. Longbows, a good peeling unit. Cannons, 1200 and 800. Peasant Bows, I think some of them got some decent value. Yeah, like 800 on that one. And of course, like the biggest MVP were the Peasant Spears. Like, we got 600 on these guys. We got 783. Certainly the army clicked pretty well. And honestly, if you're playing in a land battle tournament, I will be hosting tournaments like this. For those of you who are new to the channel, this is how typical Warhammer 2 tournaments were played under these type of formats. So I will be hosting tournaments in this style as well. These are what are going to be called land battle tournaments, and then we'll have domination tournaments, which are like a separate format. But yeah, the Ogre army was fun. I really think probably cutting the Stonehorn. The Leadbelchers felt a little bit weird too. Like, I felt like my cannons just wrecked them so bad. I would probably just cut the Leadbelchers and the Stonehorn and go with like a swarming build. Like bring in like 3 or 4 Iron Guts in the front line just for like a ton of armor piercing to just like bully through, backed up by Noblar chaff units. Gorgers, of course, are just always good, but in this case, they really got shut down by the basic spears and the slowing effects of Cathay. So yeah, kind of cool. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Got a lot of fun land battles coming up soon, as well as domination. You guys are in for some treats. And that is it for now. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you on the other side.